Hello everyone and welcome back to Applied Intelligence, where intelligence is applied, not just learned. In today's tutorial, we will explore one-dimensional arrays, two-dimensional arrays, and multi-dimensional arrays in C programming. Arrays are one of the most powerful data structures in C because they allow us to store and manage multiple values efficiently. As programs become more complex, we often need to organize data into rows, columns, tables, or even higher dimensions. By the end of this lesson, you will be able to understand one-dimensional arrays, create and use two-dimensional arrays, understand multi-dimensional arrays, process arrays using nested loops, and apply arrays to real-world programming problems. So let's get started. Before we start storing and processing multiple values, it is important to understand the syntax of an array in C. Let's start with one-dimensional array. Syntax. You start with a data type, space, array name, and then inside the square bracket, it's the size of the array or the array size. Example, data type, integer. Array name, let's say the array name is numbers. And then we can have the size, let's say 5 numbers. So that is the size or the elements, the number of elements of your array. Now, you can actually do this by this one in the declaration of your array, or if you're going to initialize values for your array, you can have integer, for example, data type, then the array name, numbers, then the size, meaning 5 elements, equal sign, and then the curly braces. Then you put the elements inside the curly braces. So for example, I have 5, example, 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Then semicolon. Storage representation for your array, you can just have this. Array starts with index 0. Index 0. Then followed by 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have 5 elements, and these are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Then let us traverse the elements of the array. So we can say, what is the value inside that index 0? So numbers, that's the array name, index 0, which has an element of 10. Say numbers 1, what is the value? You have 20. Numbers, that's the name of the array again. Then index 2, you have 30. Then you have For the third index, you have 40. So then you have the last element in the array. So you have index 450. So that's how you access or traverse the elements inside the array. So later on, I will be giving you an example program on how are you going to traverse and display the elements of a one-dimensional array. Let's move on to two-dimensional array. Syntax. Again, you start with the data type, space, the array name. You can think of any identifier for your array name. And then, okay, we can have the size of the array next to the array name. So you can have two subscripts here. Two subscripts for the two-dimensional. So for the three-dimensional, we have three subscripts. And then for the one-dimensional, we only have one subscript. And then semicolon. And then for the first subscript, this is intending for the row. And then this is for the column. Now, example. Data type again, integer. Let's have array name again, numbers. And then I can have, like, for example, how many rows I have? Let's say 2 rows and then 3 columns. So meaning I have 2 by 3 array for two-dimensional array. So what are the number of elements inside the two-dimensional array is 6. 2 times 3, that will give you 6. So let's put 6 elements. So how are you going to do that? So this is the curly brace. Okay? Then you can just put the first row for your first brace. Curly brace or braces. Then another one for the second row. And then per row you have the column. Let's say this is 10, 20, 30. 40, 50, 60. So that's how you declare and initialize values in two-dimensional array. Now, if we are going to create a storage representation for this given value, so we have like 2 rows. Now, let's create 2 rows. Again, your row starts at 0 index and then 1, then pertaining to the first row, and then this is for the second row. And then you have 3 columns. 1, 2, 3 columns. So again, index starts at 0, then you have 1, 2. But of course, you're pertaining to the first column, second column, and third column. So what are the values? So you have there 10, 20, 30, then you have 40, 50, and 60. Now, how are you going to access? So access or traverse the elements inside the two-dimensional array. So the name again, we can have it here. Again, so we have the name. Let us start here. The name of the array is numbers. Then 0 index for the first column. Then let's have 0 for the first row, first column. Okay? First row, first column. 0, 0. So you have the element 10. How about for the numbers 0? Then you have first column. So that will give you the element 20. Then you have numbers 0. And then you have second index 2 for your third actually column. So that will give you value of 30. And then let's go to the next row. Numbers 1, first row, second row. And then you have there the first column, which is an index 0. So you have 1, 0, that will give you the value of 40. And then numbers 1, 1, that has a value of 50. And then let's continue here, numbers 1, 2. So that has an element of 60. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. So these are the elements inside the two-dimensional array. Again, I'll be giving a program for this example. Now for the three-dimensional array. Syntax. Data type. Space. Array name. And then followed by the subscripts. So since this is three-dimensional, so this is for the multi-dimensional array. We can just have an example for the three-dimensional. Then the subscripts, we have 3, first, second, and then third. We can just have, we can just have that. So this one is for the layer. Again, this is for the row, and then you have there the column. Example, let's have integer. Data type, integer. So array name, numbers. Then I will just have 2 layers. And then we'll just have, again, 2 rows and 3 columns. And then what are the values? So let's initialize values for your three-dimensional array. So we can have, again, brackets since I have 2 layers. So you can think of like putting another one set for your first layer. Can have here for the first layer, which has 2 rows. Then you put the comma for the 2 rows. And then let's create the columns. The elements 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So those are the elements for the first layer, for the first and second row of your three-dimensional array. So we're done with the first layer. Then you put the comma, another one. For the second layer, let's have that for the second layer. And then we have 2 rows. Supposing we have here 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. So that's it. So second layer, then your first and second row for the second layer, and then you put here a curly brace, and then that's the end. So that's how you declare and initialize values for your three-dimensional arrays. Now, accessing these values, the storage representation, of course, you have there the first layer, and then the second layer. Then you have there the dimensions now for the second, for the row, and then the column of the first and the second array. So let's say, how are we going to access those values? So accessing this, let's say the numbers. Let us start with the 0 layer. The layer starts again with the index 0. You have 2 layers. Let's put here another layer. Numbers. Then you have there the second layer. So numbers, so you have there for 0. And then let's talk about like a second row, first row, and then first column. So you can just have there. So the same thing, no? You can just access the 0. Okay, 0. Okay, first. Okay, for the first layer, first row, first column. So therefore you have there 10. Then you have there for the again first layer, and then first row, second column. You have 20. Then you have the first layer, and then you have the first row, third column at index 2. So you have there 30. Then numbers 0. Then this time it's for the second row. You have 1, 0. Oh, you have there 40. Numbers 0. This is your second row, second column. So you have there 50. 0, 1. Okay. Then you still have there the numbers for the first layer, and then you have the second row, and then the third column for the second row. So you have there 60. Same matter with the second layer. So you have the numbers 1, first layer, and then first row, first column. So that will give you 5. Numbers, again, for the second layer, 0, 1. That will give you 10. Numbers, first, second layer again, and then still at first row, and this time at second column. So you have there 15. 1, 2, third column. So you have there numbers, still again, and then this time at the second row, index 1. So 1, 0, you have there 20. Numbers. Then this time, this is 1. And that will give you 25. And then numbers. 1. This is your second row, and then now at the third column of the second layer. That will give you 30. Okay, so first layer, second layer rather, and then first row of the second layer, second row of the second layer, and then first column, second column, third column, first column, third, second, and then third. Okay, that's it. Then this one, 0, 0, 0, 0, okay, 0, 0, 0, okay, 0, 1, 2, 0, okay. So this is for the 3-dimensional array. Then I will be giving you an example program. Today we learned one-dimensional arrays, two-dimensional arrays, multi-dimensional arrays, array initialization, accessing elements, nested loops, and practical applications. Remember, one-dimensional arrays store data in one line. Two-dimensional arrays store data in a table. Three-dimensional or multi-dimensional arrays store data in multiple layers. The higher the dimension, the more complex and organized your data structures can become. Understanding multi-dimensional arrays is an important step toward learning matrices, image processing, data analysis, game development, and advanced programming concepts. If you found this lesson helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more programming tutorials and technology education content. This is Engineer Chris Natividad. Thank you for watching. Again, this is Applied Intelligence, where intelligence is applied, not just learned. See you in the next tutorial.